Joining us on the show is Brenan Jackson, the football director and a director of many other things at the Utah High School Activities Association. How are you doing today, Mr. Jackson?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for the opportunity to talk with you guys about the status of football in Utah.
Yeah, so a unique situation. I know you guys, when you made a decision, way back in the spring, that you guys were going to go ahead with playing football out in Utah, and I don't know exactly what the cases were at the time. I do know they did go up during the summer, but you guys stayed the course and decided to hold a football season. You had an incident to start, but it seems like it's been. You're going into your fifth week here at September 11th. And what can you tell the people out there wondering how football has gone in Utah?
Well, it's been interesting as nationwide. We were one of all of the state associations decided not to have their spring sports and activities, and of course Utah was one of those, which was a very difficult decision. And I think at the time when those decisions were made, not only by Utah but all of the other states, we didn't know a lot about the virus. We didn't know a lot about the implications and the virus's methodology, how it worked, and I think there was a lot of fear and surrounding the virus and how to maneuver safely and effectively, and so that kids could participate and have fans and do it in a safe manner. So we decided to not do spring sports and activities, but we geared up during the summer to create a plan of attack to hopefully get approved to offer our fall sports season for the kids in Utah. And that final decision was made July 20th. But we had been working through the COVID during spring, through the summer as an association to try to get it off the ground and running in a safe manner.
And what measures did you guys take? Did you guys say to your high schools, here's the protocol, you guys need to do this, if you guys want to play here you have to do it? What were the things that you needed them to do, and how are you guys being able to enforce that?
Well, Governor Herbert here in Utah has been very progressive and very supportive of extracurricular activities and the role that it plays in the lives of our students. Mm-hmm. And not only is it a physical outlet, but it's also an emotional and mental outlet for kids to work hard for something as an individual and as a team. And so our governor and the governor's task force created a color phase form that listed all of the different things that could happen in our state, and they listed it under a color code of red, orange, yellow, and green. And if all of the counties in the state of Utah were in yellow phase, then we would be able to have in-school learning or in-person learning. And if they had in-person learning, then we would be able to, we felt like, have our extracurricular activities. And so the governor's task force put together this form. And then we went through with we have a sports medicine advisory committee made up of doctors and athletic trainers, and that advise our state association. And we came up with best practices and looked at what the governor's form had, and we broke it down into counties that were green, counties that were yellow, and safety protocols and procedures and guidelines for all of our fall sports to get off the ground and start running effectively. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that we've been practicing this as a state for a long time now, because after Memorial Day, schools and districts were able to get together depending on what color code they were in and limit the number of kids that could be at a practice. They worked out in pods, 20, no more than 50, depending on the color code that your county was in. And so they've been working in small groups, and in case there were outbreaks. And we did have some positive cases during the summer, and the county health departments working with the school districts determined who had to sit out, how long, and so forth. So we have worked closely with our high schools and the districts and schools have worked closely with their county and state health departments in moving forward. And so that started in May. And so it had been working through the summer months, leading up to the first week of our fall sports and activities.
How and as you got into, I know there was a lot of focus on you guys at August 13th when you guys. There was one, I believe there was one big game that was postponed, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's correct,
Right.
and it was a big game between two of our perennial teams in the state that weren't able to play because there were 3 players that had a positive test result on one of the teams.
Right.
But interestingly enough, is that those positive results came from they picked it up from other family members and not their football team.
Right. Okay.
And because of the protocols that were in place that we used, those kids, they came to go to practice because school wasn't in session yet. They came to practice, they had their symptoms tested, and their temperature checked, and they weren't feeling the best, so the coaches immediately sent them home, which was the perfect protocol, and then those kids did not infect anybody else on their team.
So, as far, the part of this virus that we know about is sometimes it can kind of crop up in places that we're not sure about or we didn't know about. It's because it has a long incubation period, 2 weeks. But, just based on how many games have you guys played, and based off that, it doesn't seem like it's really, how many games have you had to postpone or cancel? It doesn't really seem like you guys have had a lot of that.
No, we haven't. I don't think we had any last week. That we had one the first week, one the second week, and then one the third week. But the last 2 weeks, and we keep our fingers crossed as tomorrow approaches, we didn't have any cancellations. And we did have a volleyball team that came and 2 soccer teams that had to reschedule their games. And but the schools are following the protocols and working hand in hand with their county health departments. That has really set the standard of care and contact tracing, and the system has worked so far.
I read in the Salt Lake Tribune Salt Lake City Tribune that the cases had been rising since you guys started, but it hasn't really spiked or anything like that. How many? It doesn't seem like it's become a real concern there. It seems like everyone's kind of relaxing a little bit out in Utah about playing games. Did you have a lot of concerned parents and people at the beginning of the season, and how are their attitudes now?
There's always going to be some naysayers, and we had a few of those, but mostly positive things where we're outdoors, and school districts have limited this. Most school districts in the metropolitan areas have limited the mass of people that can be in their stadiums, and some of them made a commitment to only allow 25% capacity so that they can social distance. And then we've just had a lot of tremendous support from the parents in our community and the schools to be able to do it, but we've wanted to do it hand in hand with our governor's office and the state health departments, and working together to do it safely. But we knew, and we still know, that we are never going to stop the virus from spreading. It's how do we? Our goal is not to not have any cases. Our goal is to try to catch them before it gets into a team, because we have no control over external factors of what's happening in their home,
Right.
in their communities, their family gatherings. But there has not been a lot of of data that shows that the kids are getting it from their extracurricular activities. They're actually getting it from family gatherings and events.
Right. Just could you, if you could explain to the people out here in on the East Coast, Utah. For people who don't know about Utah, I mean, it's a pretty high metropolitan area. Salt Lake City, Provo, and those places around the Great Salt Lake, and that it's pretty much wide open around that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's we have, well, we've got five major pockets of metropolitan area. So we have Utah County, which would be the Provo-Orem area, and then as you come across what's called the point of the mountain, you come into the Wasatch Front,
Right.
which is most of Salt Lake County, and a lot of our large schools are there. And then as you go north into the Weber County and Davis County school district area, and then Cache County is in north, and then our Washington County in the south. So those are kind of the five metropolitan areas that we keep a real close eye on as far as positive cases and what's happening in our schools.
Right, and it's a similar population to Connecticut, but obviously it's a little more spread out. But the major metro area, you have your major schools there, your 6As, your 5As. And it again, I guess, I mean, would you, after 5 weeks, and you say you can never spread it, but it seems like, it was a risk, but it was kind of a calculated risk, and so far so good over. Would you call this a success so far?
Well, I do want to say that we had, during the month of July, we had some real spikes of the COVID virus, but it wasn't from our student athletes.
Okay. It
was a spike in our communities, and because football didn't get started under our jurisdiction until July 27th.
Okay.
But we did spike a number of days during July. We were in the 700-800 positive cases that were reported on a daily basis, and that really concerned us. It concerned the governor and his task force and our communities, but we stayed the course. Our governor came out and put some mandates on us and pleaded with our state to start wearing masks, and businesses started saying masks are required if you're coming in here. And so kind of a combined effort, and I think the state of Utah, our culture has been very resilient, and the history of our state has shown resiliency from its inception to present, and we're very progressive in the fact that we want to try to find ways and find reasons to make things work instead of looking for excuses not to. And so that's especially when it is in the best interest of our students to have these outlets and to be able to do it, but to do it safely. So instead of just saying, oh, we're going to let fear determine what we do or not do, we were just saying, let's move forward with what we think we can do, and let's get buy-in from our schools and our parents and our players, and let's work together to move forward with the governor's office, his task force, and let's find reasons that we can do it instead of reasons not to.
You're also the director of wrestling. Have you ever had discussions on that yet?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We're having discussions and have another meeting with our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, and we're just looking at ways and working again with our districts and our county health departments in limiting the number of teams that come to tournaments, maybe allowing more dual tournaments versus the big tournaments that teams can go to, and then having more duels. And so we're looking at ways to continue to improve and fine-tune, because I know and the coaches understand that wrestling is going to be could be a very impactful sport across the state.
Right. Plus, it's indoors. I guess that's a main thing. They're getting some
That's correct.
some ventilation there. I mean, I don't know how you guys are going to work that out. But its talks seem to be, you go. I mean, if you were to say now, would you think that you guys would go ahead with something, similar to what you guys did with here with football?
Yes, we're going to move forward with our fall winter sports and all activities. We're going to just keep doing what we've been doing and fine tune what we need to adjust and take care of, and try to get better at what we're already doing to keep kids safe.
What advice would you have before I let you go here, Mr. Jackson? Would you give to us on the East Coast? I know it's a different world out here as compared to Utah, but we had New York cancel football, we had Maine cancel football, we had Massachusetts and Connecticut, and Delaware just reversed. I mean, do you think that a lot of these state associations being maybe a little bit hasty here, or just based on your experience, what advice would you give to some of these athletic directors and administrators?
Well, I would just say that I think for the last 6 or 7 months that fear has been the captain of the boat, and I would just recommend that instead of fear driving the ship and the crew, I think that the captain of the ship needs to be people that want to do what's best for kids. And I know that every area of our country is different, and I think the population of people may be different as well. But I think the general attitude is in Utah is we're trying to find ways to make it work, and know that there's not going to be a perfect system, and that we are going to have some positive cases, but we have a way of handling that and moving forward. And to be quite honest with you guys, if we had a serious outbreak in our 6A and 5A classifications and we weren't able to have a state championship, we would still have a state championship in our lower classifications.
Okay.
And so we're not going to have just because one area is having this issue and can't continue, doesn't mean we're going to stop it statewide.
Okay. Well, listen, you guys, everyone's kind of looking to Utah right now as a leader in this, and we appreciate you having on and give us a little bit of insight, and best wishes to you guys the rest of the way. So when are your state championships supposed to be held, before I let you go?
They're going to start the second week of November, and they finish on the 20th.
Okay. All right. So look forward to that in Utah, and then I appreciate you giving us a little bit of time here on GameTimeCT, and good luck, and thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.